All right. So good afternoon, everybody. Corey, Giulio, Marielle, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know it's 3 p.m., so maybe energy levels are a little low, and Gabby is here, so I hope you guys help me out. Can I hear how excited you are to hear about this, hear from these three leaders right now? Woo! Okay, great. Wow, look at that. My own background music. I'll be taking advantage of that for the rest of the talk. Okay, anyway. All right, so as it was introduced today, we'll be diving into a topic that is, I would say, perfectly fitting of the setting we are in and the very spirit of this event. I think when we think about YGG, the first word that comes to mind is community, and rightfully so. Today, we're about to get a masterclass from, I would say, three of the best in the space who have defined in their own ways how community building looks like in Web3 gaming. So to start things off, obviously these three guys need no introduction, but for formality's sake, maybe you guys can introduce yourself, the project you're working on. Corey, maybe we can start with you.
Wow, okay. Corey Wilton, one of the co-founders of Mirai Labs. You guys you guys may know us from Pegasus or Petopia or Pocket Waifu as of recent. Everyone's coming up talking about waifus to me, so amazing. Or Merge Pals, a bunch of them. So yes, very glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, Giulio. I'm the co-founder of Mon Protocol, and we acquired Pixelmon, an NFT collection, a few years ago. We are a monster collecting IP, NFT native.
I think your biggest fan is in the audience, right?
Oh, I am his biggest fan. It's the other way around. Hey, Kev.
Marielle.
I'm Marielle Noble. I'm from the YGG Global team, and I look after our GAP and SuperQuest programs.
Fantastic. All right. So just to kick things off, I'm curious, what community or communities maybe you were a part of that really kind of jump-started your journey into Web3 or made you excited about Web3?
Sure. I actually started this all as a player. I joined F1 Delta Time, if you guys remember it, very long ago, from Animoca. I was just playing, I got in there, and it was in its most early stage, and it was just a Discord community. Someone tried to help me in, I didn't know what I was doing, and one thing led to another. I'm still friends with them today, and a couple of frustrations from it being very early made me decide to build Pegasus. So I owe it a lot. I owe basically the entirety of Mirai Labs to Animoca and F1 Delta Time and that community for pushing me to do it.
I'll answer this twisting it a bit. I'll tell you the first time I heard about blockchain gaming. I was working in a company called Zalora, which is an e-commerce player here in Southeast Asia. And Zalora had its largest offices in Vietnam and the Philippines. In the Philippines, we had our big shared service center, so customer service and finance. In Vietnam, we had our tech center for around 12 countries. One day, HR comes to us with a report that our churn rate was churn employees leaving was through the roof in Vietnam and in the Philippines. And then they tell us they're all going to the same company. And I'm like, okay, what company is this? And apparently trying to get it out of the HR team, they had understood that everybody was actually going to play video games. And anyways, dig. We were losing developers to Sky Mavis really fast. And we were losing a big part of our workforce in the Philippines to full-time, probably YGG playtime. And that was the first time I heard about it. And I was in that kind of period where a founder is exiting, thinking what to do next. I think that was the moment the spark came up and that maybe I should look at this blockchain gaming intersection more closely. Yeah.
Much earlier in my career, I spent time working in traditional content creation, early days of YouTube with the early MSNs. And so content and creator and just general power of community to drive projects forward has always been at the forefront of my mind. And a very good friend introduced me to Gabby, and I was instantly sold on the YGG mission. So here I am.
Gotcha. Right. Very interesting starts. So I know each of your projects sort of incorporate mechanisms that reward community members, desired kinds of behaviors from community members. Being in this space for many years already, I believe iterating in the different mechanisms on how to build community. So I'm curious, how do you see this approach change the way you're able to build your communities now, relative to maybe how you did it before, or what you've seen in this space? Anybody can take the question first.
I'll go first. So I'll address this question a bit also over the history of our project. We were born about after the acquisition of Pixelmon, but we were an NFT collection first before being a gaming type collection. And by that I mean we were an ERC20 high price point NFT collection where while the interest is towards gaming, the actual collective community purchasing is, yes, creating community, but we see this in the ERC20 top 20, top 30 collections in NFTs. It's actually a lot of it is also status symbol posturing, so which is a step different than the typical lower entry price point gaming community. So the beginning of our journey was actually we had to nurture that status symbol aspect of the different NFTs within the collection, so between themselves and towards other collections. So a lot of our community building was actually also built on creating classes, creating ranks of different holders, and so on. Now, as we started building real games, the topic starts becoming very different, because instead what you want to do is level the playing field a lot more, make it a lot more inclusive across the spectrum, and not about status symbol of how much can I spend, but about status symbol of how much do I play, how well do I play, how much do I know about the IP. And this has big impacts in even just how you structure your Discord, how you structure the way you treat your different community members. What is a whale? Is he the biggest spender in the game, or is he the one with a lot of NFTs that is passive? And this is where we are transitioning as a project. And I think in many ways, a lot of the ERC20 layer 1 native NFT collections that are gaming in nature have to transition towards.
I guess if we're comparing from 21 until now for us, I wouldn't say a lot is different, because we've always been the type to build games for those who love to play with money. This is just content that I made like when we first came out. I would always talk about like, why are we pushing away the idea that people love to play with money, and what is fun, I guess, is the big question here. So a little bit unconventional, I guess you would say. We really like to just build community for people who are a little bit on the degenerate side, and I guess that makes sense why some of our products like Waifu and stuff are attractive to our existing community. And while fundamentally things have changed, you know, users' standards and what they deem acceptable and unacceptable, I would say foundationally, our community has typically remained the same and just continued to grow over time.
And for us, we're really focused on growth and creating new opportunities for the YGG community. The community is vast, it's regional, it's all over the world. And so really it's about tapping into the specific things that each community cares about. And I think growing particularly with reputation, on-chain reputation, and now opening that up into the guild protocol, I think just is expanding what we can do and what we can bring to the community in a very different way.
Got it. All right. Very interesting. So you talk about what you think works. I'm going to ask a semi-controversial question. What are some of the community growth strategies you're seeing in 2024 that you feel like should be put to rest? Like,
I'm sure you have.
no need to name names, just, you know.
Don't worry.
Well, look, I think I'll do this. I'll answer this question very honestly, while also probably being the biggest culprit of it as a company. So, I think the questing meta should never have existed, and it should be. It's over. Hopefully, it can't happen fast enough. First of all, I think, you know, nothing against questers, but what you end up doing, and this is our experience having overutilized that lever, particularly in 2024. First of all, I think no users are intrinsically bad users, but the behaviors you incentivize can create negative user bases. And I think just the mere concept of social type questing, so not sophisticated questing, I think that's different. What Moku and others do with in-game questing, I think is a much more interesting approach. But the pure social questing aspect, I think effectively it creates a community that is mercenary, but at a very superficial level, that doesn't allow them to actually metabolize your product while questing, which is what instead guilds do at a deeper level. And that, in my opinion, has that meta, and jumping into that meta has hurt a lot of projects, including ourselves. It has created, probably for a couple of them that were at the very early on, like Portal and others, a pathway to TGE, but then closing it to everybody else. So I'd say social questing or superficial questing, I don't know how maybe you would call it compared to your type, is something that, I hope we've all learned from and can step away from.
I would agree with you. I think that superficial transactional questing, right, at that surface level, it can give you a great surge, but the users don't really engage the way that you want them to. So it's really more about designing quests, if you're going to go that route, that actually push the user to engage in the way that they will enjoy and form a connection with the product itself.
I echo those sentiments for sure. However, from our side, we don't pay too much attention to like really what's not working or what we should stop unless the metrics or it's something that we were doing that is just very bad. We're always just trying to look at what potentially can happen next, where we can stand out. Personally, I mean, this might be a little bit off topic. The one thing that I just don't like is doing stuff for like pre-product or very, very early when the product is going to launch in 12 months or something like that. That's always going to set an unfortunate expectation for the community, and it might feel good as a founder, and sometimes VCs will push you in this direction to or ask why you don't have a community yet or something like this. But unfortunately, I think this just sets up founders to have a lot of pain. And I think this is what Giulio was speaking about earlier, is like superficial expectations. Everything goes wrong in those situations, unfortunately, and it's a very short-term situation.
Yeah, I think focusing more on creating opportunity to collaborate and contribute as a community is really powerful and takes you away from just that kind of very transactional sign-up.
Got it. So it's not so much the questing format, but the quality of quests that you implement.
I mean, I would just explain it as, is there a chance that by questing they will find a reason to come back even if questing weren't there? And when you're doing pure social questing, the answer is obviously no. You're not creating hooks. You're not capturing even a single-digit percentage for later. You're actually potentially ruining the experience of somebody that if they had approached the IP, in our case, from a non-questing standpoint, would have been hooked. But the mere incentive of questing is to always stay superficial. So you might actually be losing retention rate via.
Got it. So it's more of thinking about it in a conversion standpoint. How do you actually attract a crowd and then convert them down the funnel? Very interesting. All right. So we talked about, I think you touched upon it a while ago, Giulio, the difference between building NFT-based communities and gaming communities. And I think maybe a lot of builders here can relate, starting off maybe launching an NFT collection and then eventually launching their game, potentially attracting crowds that might not be, not necessarily directly port over from one to another. So given your experience in Mon Protocol, how would you advise these games to transform their communities or bring their communities down their roadmap, starting from an NFT and then building out a game?
So I think the difference is, at least for me, particularly perceivable when you have essentially the vanity and status symbol type NFT collections, because the NFT spectrum is also very, very wide. So let's think about the collections that have specific rarity steps and typically prices that vary highly by rarity steps and prices that are very likely at least 4-digit USD and above. Now, those are collections where the mentality of the participants is certainly buying into a certain community culture. It certainly is buying into a common mission, maybe make a game or an anime chain or whatnot, or a metaverse. But the difference is that layered on top of all that, there is a society that is split by classes of the asset you hold gives you a different posture within the ecosystem. No? Are you a whale? Do you own a dragon? Do you have a golden ape? Or do you have a normal ape? Do you have a mutant? Or do you have an original? Do you have a bean? Or do you have an Azuki? Or do you have a spirit? And that is something that mentality, while I think has a lot of value, and it is ultimately at the core of those ERC20 collections, doesn't port very well instead into the class system you would create in a pure gaming environment, where instead you'd focus on the gaming whales and on scores and contributions to the game and ecosystem, etc. I don't have clear advice other than understanding the split of the two. We're even considering splitting Discords down the road, or trying to split collections so that you have layer 2 collections that operate on mechanics very different than the layer 1 collection.
Interesting. So, is that alpha? Is a new collection coming out? No, sorry. All right. So, a personal curious question for me, actually, I just wanted to ask. Given what you said about those challenges, we all know, I guess most of the people in this room know the storied history of Pixelmon, wherein you basically acquired it after the end of Team Men. I wonder why you decided to acquire an existing IP versus starting your own or starting from scratch, given, I would say, the initial backlash that Pixelmon had in the beginning.
So we were a small gaming studio in 2021, and we started realizing by looking at NFT collections and guilds that building with a community seemed to create a better feedback loop and potentially de-risk the building process. A little bit like the theories that Kickstarter-based projects would have a higher probability of success versus a pure indie project at parity of funding because they're building with the community. Look, me and my co-founder are what you call second or third time founders. We looked at the process by which NFT collections were launched, and I must say, this is 2021. It looked to us like very opaque, and pretty much it was stuff from Mars to two guys coming out of Web 2. So while looking at it, we realized probably the best way for us to leverage our core skills is to acquire one. Because my impression from a million miles away, and that goes with a big compliment to the founders in the NFT space that are still around, but my impression in 2021 was that the vast majority of NFT founders just wanted to get out, but they wanted an excuse to get out without being called a rug. And M&A was the perfect excuse. And you would inherit a concept, a community, and potentially a small treasury because it was sometimes transparently on chain in a multi-sig or whatnot. So for us, that instead in 2021, hyped market, we had a high capacity of raising money because of our previous experience. This seemed the easiest way to get to a community. We didn't imagine that the target would be anything as big or controversial as Pixelmon. We went through dozens of them, and when Pixelmon arrived, it just made a ton of sense. It's not just about the funding or the size of the community, because it was the biggest community with the biggest funding. It's that it actually was, in my opinion, the biggest TAM. And by TAM, I mean target addressable market, because it was targeting Pokemon nostalgics. And with Pokemon being the biggest consumer IP in the world by a factor of 2 to Mickey Mouse, which is number 2, and a factor of 10 to Star Trek, and most of the monetization stopping at 16 years old, well, but everybody after 16 still remembers it with fondness. I call them nostalgics. we always thought that was a huge TAM within the IP space, compared to, say, apes or lizards or whatnot. So that was what drove us to the acquisition.
Very interesting. So now moving on from Pokemon to waifus. I'm curious. So obviously part of community building is moderation, right? And with pocket waifus, I think it's pretty clear to everybody it's not safe for work. Yes, there's some explicit content over there. So how have you been navigating that, managing moderation, making sure that, you're not getting banned or
Sure. It's quite difficult, of course. I guess we're going into like uncharted territory, but it just was fitting timing as well. There's a lot of waifu energy around. And at some point, I think maybe the only one that might accept us is Anime Chain at this stage. But yeah, honestly, the idea originally came from the fact that Telegram doesn't have many rules and regulations. And there was clearly an opportunity within Telegram, a lot of users there that want to play games. And we recognize you can deploy a game in there without App Store approval. And I was like, how far can we take this? So I took it like all the way. Yeah, like I was like, let's just do it. And everyone's like, are you crazy? But we did it anyway.
you took it far enough.
Yeah, we took it far enough. And it got a lot of attention, of course. We're not ready to do marketing or anything like that, but it's a bit late. Everyone found out anyway. And
Oh,
yeah.
no marketing.
No, not yet, not
Oh,
yet.
wow.
But I'm sure some of you guys have played it. And yeah, honestly, moderation was difficult. We didn't go on Discord for obvious reasons. Just talking to Giulio about that one. Likely the account will disappear overnight. Telegram, on the other hand, is a little bit more lenient. Our community channel did disappear overnight one time. Still don't know why. But this one, 20,000 users in there. Still going pretty strong. Fairly explicit. We try to keep it pretty chill. We've got 24-hour moderation. We do the best we can. No crazy stuff. Just some guys and girls enjoying the vibes. That's about it.
I'm curious, actually. You said it at the end. What's the gender split? Do you have any data?
Do you have to ask?
Not a lot. You'd be surprised.
He said guys and girls, and I
Yeah.
think you'd be surprised.
There's honestly, like it's like a traditional split. Like it's not that different to a normal game. There's a lot of girls in there asking for something called husbandos, which is the same thing but guys. But it's difficult as well because
So when's equality coming, Corey?
I don't know. But definitely it's on the roadmap. That's not my expertise. A bit better at waifus, but plenty of girls at the company who will be able to handle that. And yeah, that's a little bit of alpha, I guess, right there. Husbandos on the roadmap.
All right. So now moving on from games to now guilds. We all know, well, personally, I've seen the impact that, YGG has given individual players in the Philippines and all over the world. I'm curious though, with the on-chain reputation system that you're building, how can games capitalize that to grow their communities and to grow their user base?
Yeah, so reputation and opportunity are intrinsically linked, and having on-chain opportunity, particularly expanding to guilds, right, gives you the ability to have a group of people with a verified, real proof of work, proof of achievement that just opens up so many new opportunities. And so whether it's games looking to bring in a certain type or level of player, right, now we can, right, at this huge scale that we're seeing, within the guilds themselves as opposed to individual players. So content creation to game testing to, kind of anything under the sun, it just creates, a whole new world of possibilities.
Gotcha. All right. And we have about a minute left, so a bit of a rapid fire, but personally, I guess in your experience working in the space, within your games, within the YGG, what's one thing that you've experienced or implemented that you can confidently say really built loyalty over cycles for your game, for YGG?
I mean, transparency. So for us, the entire turnaround of the Pixelmon community was just being ultra transparent to the most extreme level. And when I mean transparency, I don't mean, okay, when we do something, we're going to come out and make an announcement about doing it. Every day, we give a status update on how things are going. including when they're not going super well. And that can be in an active way, but also in a passive way. So ask us questions, and in the framework of efficiency, but we will answer, and we will transparently answer. So opposite to the potential other framework, which is the framework of, say, posturing versus your community. I think that always works. Transparency takes more time.
Same on this side. I guess just being totally blunt, totally honest, and just yourself. I think a lot of the community does actually still bet on the founders. They're really invested in the founders. They want the founders to be present. They want the founders to talk to them. So for sure, the projects are cool. Everything is great. But it's not very often that you see an anonymous studio build a game that goes insanely big. They really do bet on the founders, so you've got to be active. Has helped for us.
I agree with what they said, but I think also at a YGG level, implementing our community programs has been really impactful and really powerful, particularly here in the Philippines, right? Starting at the grassroots level with our Metaversity program and, helping onboard new users into the Web3 ecosystem and, creating opportunities within the larger community team for people to grow into different roles that they find interesting, from community mods to guild leaders.
All right, and that's our last question for today.
Thank
you so much to the three of you, and thank you everybody for listening. Let's give them a round of applause again.